I thought it was like on the wedding day, it was just the groom and the bride. Like, I thought it was just the two of them. No, 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 no. In the divine gift of marriage, it's not just the groom and the bride. There's another party there. And who's the other party? It's God himself. Do you understand how profound this is? What God has joined together. What he has, the molecules he has assembled together. Let nobody tear apart. I like what Tim Keller says. He says, marriage is not so much a declaration of present love, although it's that. It's the binding promise of future love. It's a promise not to feel warm and loving all the time, because nobody can promise that, right? Even though we do on our wedding day. I will never, I will always feel amazing with you and serve you. And then 2 days later, it's like, well, they broke that vow. But anyway, so it's a promise to be loving and tender and faithful and cherishing and serving when you feel good. No, regardless of the ups and downs of emotions or circumstances, long-term through thick and thin. I like that. Love is not just a commitment to devotion in the present. It's a promise for future devotion. The days, the hours, the time that has not yet come, it's saying, I will be here for you because we are one. Do you feel the weight in this? Let me just say last thing here. So we just read Matthew 19:6, what God has joined together, let no one separate. 4 verses later, after Jesus' disciples hear Jesus talk about marriage and divorce, here's what they say, Matthew 19:10. The disciples said to him, if this is the situation between a husband and wife, it's better not to marry. Now, they're not against marriage, but it's so profound what Jesus is saying here. It's so massive. It's deeper, it's richer than anyone could imagine. They're like, well, it's too much for us. And that's kind of the point that Jesus is making. It's big. It's really big, right? Jesus' vision for marriage is virtually unfathomable. It's virtually indescribable in human terms. But it is good and it is true. Thirdly, is that celebrate the practical ministry of marriage. You see, in every marriage, there's only 2 problems. 1, the groom. 2, the bride. All right, that's the only problems. And it's good to know that, actually. It's good to recognize that you are far from perfect. Because a lot of times what happens in marriages and relationships and stuff is like one of them sees themselves as wiser, godlier, more mature than the other. And consequently, they're like above them, right? And they're kind of going, hey, dude, you got to wake up, catch up to speed here. Once you're with me, then, I'll relax a little bit. But until then, of course, the irony is they're doing what? They're actually being proud, right? They're being arrogant, they're being conceited, all the things that the Lord detests. But there is this can be a competition. Friends, both the husband and the wife are far from perfect, and therefore, here's the beauty of marriage. Marriage is a tool. It's an instrument used by God. And of course, plenty of people don't get married, so I'm not saying you have to be married, but it is something God uses to mature one another, to grow us up, to learn how to love when it's hard to love, to learn how to forgive when we don't feel like it, to learn to sacrifice, to literally say goodbye to maybe a hobby because it's just taking too much of your devotion and your time, or to at least put it on the back burner or whatever. It's understanding that God comes first, right? Not even my spouse. The Bible doesn't say trust in your spouse with all your heart. Bible doesn't say seek first the kingdom of your husband or wife, You put God first. It's the proper order of things. And in so doing, we grow closer together. But in the context of marriage, we shape each other. So I'm a lot more like Joy, even in my personality, than I was when we got married. And she, unfortunately, to her, but dismay, is a little bit like me, a little bit more like me. But no, the truth is, I'm joking, but you kind of like shave off each other's rough spots over time. And it only happens over time. It's the only way that can happen. It happens over. So he might learn to be patient. She might need to learn to exercise self-control. He might need to learn kindness. She might need to learn grace or something like that, right? But collectively, and they're not God, but God uses them to grow them in faith, right? So Ephesians 5:25 says, husbands, love your wives just like Jesus loved his bride, the church, and gave himself up for her. And what does Jesus do for his bride? To make her holy, cleansing her by the washing of water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. See, a Christian marriage prioritizes this. I want my spouse to grow to become more like Jesus. That is really important to me. That's of utmost importance. I want them to look more and more like Jesus as a result of our marriage relationship. And now you can see if that's your goal, you're like, ooh, I better step it up. I better grow in faith. I better, learn to be more gracious or learn to be more kind or whatever, because God has put us together so that I can help them grow. The fourth thing is this, is celebrate the profound picture of marriage. The picture of marriage is this. It's a gospel reenactment. In the first service, I said, you know what? The Apostle Paul was never married. And in fact, 1 Corinthians 7, he's like, hey, practically, when it comes to serving Christ, it might be better if you're not married. But he's like, but most of you are going to get married, and most of you need to be married, okay? And enjoy the gift of marriage. But the Apostle Paul was married. And then I said this. And I said, Jesus wasn't married. And that's only kind of true. That's true in his earthly life. Don't worry, there's no Dan Brown stuff happening right now, okay? His earthly life. But actually, Jesus does have a bride. And in fact, it's called those who belong to him, the church. And in fact, this, quote, marriage, not the way we think of it exactly, but this bonded relationship is eternal. But our human marriages, the relationship will last, but the marriage won't last. Meaning the human marriage points to a grander, greater marriage. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay, why is that important? Because people need some kind of image or picture of what the enduring, steadfast love of God looks like. And that's why it's incumbent upon his people, we're not going to have perfect marriages, but to somehow, in some small measure, reflect his love in the way that we love one another. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay? It's the witness we have. It's the profound picture we are to show. People are becoming less and less attracted to marriage because there are less and less marriages that are attractive. Make it your ambition, if you're married, that would not be said of you. That it's not only about you. It's about the witness, the testimony that you have, the difference God can make through your life by being a faithful picture to what marriage is like. All right, we got a few minutes left, so we're going to be really practical here. Ready? Practical. All right, so how to enjoy marriage. How do we practically enjoy marriage? Because the Lord says in Genesis 2, it's not good for the man to be alone, no kidding, and I will make a helper, because he needs help, suitable for him, somebody that fits him just right? I'm going to need to make somebody, because mankind was different than the animals, right? And made in God's image, and we are not animals. I just want to make that clear. Human beings are not animals, all right? We are distinct from animals. God made us in his image. We can create, we can all kinds of things, all right? But we're different. And then so none of the animals fit, right, Adam, and so he makes Eve. Eve fits. And there's this beautiful language, and he sees Eve, and he's like, whoa, that's just my translation. He's like, boy, you fit. You have opposable thumbs, and you're amazing. And so anyway, you're more like me, all right? You're made to be with me, and I'm made to be with you. Like, we're made to be together kind of thing is the idea, all right? So this is the idea. And they're to help one another. Look at Ecclesiastes 4:10 and 11. I love this picture. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. I don't know if some of you have experienced, like, I've fallen and I can't get up. And so that's a bad joke, but it's an old commercial. Anyway, verse 11. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can they keep warm alone? Like, not every day is going to be fantastic. Not every day is going to be successful. Not every day is going to be a win. You and I will experience great losses and hardships in life. And when we encounter those and we fall, so to speak, we need somebody there to help us up. Now you say, well, what do you do? I mean, that's not specifically talking to marriage. No, I'm just saying in marriage, if you are married, that would be the first person to help you up, okay? If you're not married, it would be a friend. So here's what I'm saying. If you want to learn to enjoy marriage, think about the ways that you enjoy friendship. Okay? Think about the ways that you enjoy friendship. Do you see your spouse not just as your husband or your wife? That's remarkable. That's amazing. But as your friend, as your best friend. People will come and go. Kids will move out eventually. Some of them move back. Then they move out again, whatever. But just you move, life happens. There's jobs and stuff. You know what? You know who keeps following you everywhere? That your spouse. You know, they stick with you. I've told Joy, I've said, sweetie, if you ever leave me, I'm coming with you. And, because you're together. It's this permanent bond, molecules. Remember we talked about this. All right, So because people are like, I'm overwhelmed. Where do I start? My marriage needs a tune-up. Do I need to dive into conflict resolution? Maybe. Do I need to dive into family of origin issues? Maybe. Do I need to dive into budgeting? Maybe. Do I need to dive into like sexual intimacies because we struggle with it? Maybe. But I would just say this. You know what? A great place to start is just building your friendship. Building your friendship. Okay. John Gottman, a sociologist and researcher, he has a greater than 90% success rate in predicting divorce. And he says that while men and women, they're very different, one thing many of them have in common, and it's this: the most important thing to 70% of married men and women is that their spouse be their closest friend. Think about that. You may have never thought of your spouse that way, but it makes sense, doesn't it? You know the kid that you grew up with, you played wiffle ball with in the front yard, you have all these wonderful memories. You probably lost track of them in college or somewhere along the line. Like, my dad has talked about the best man in his wedding. That's some dude I've never met before. Just happened to be around him for a couple years, you know what I mean? Like in that season of life. People come and go. Your best friend should be your spouse. I think it's important to think of marriage that way. All right, but marriage should be enjoyable, like a friendship is enjoyable, but it should be enjoyable in more ways than that. Okay, enough of the friendship stuff. But Solomon says this in Ecclesiastes 9:9. Enjoy life with the wife, that rhymes, whom you love, all the days of your vain, meaningless, fleeting, short life. That sounds intense. It's wisdom literature. He's saying life goes by fast. So if you're married, enjoy life with your wife, with your husband. And you know what that requires? You might need to let go of a grudge, probably, right? You might need to have a hard conversation. You might need to forgive each other. You might need to start taking steps toward each other. You might need to find some things that you enjoy doing together, Joy and I don't have a ton in common when it comes to hobbies. So when I'm explaining to her about the golf shot I had on the 5th hole and how, man, I just really smoked it. She's like, uh-huh. And she's trying to act like she's enjoying this conversation, but I can see right through those eyes and into her cold heart. She doesn't get it. She doesn't get it. But we have found things, and then of course the big things, we're on the same page, but we found things that we enjoy doing together. See, imagine a married couple who embarks on a 2-week dream